तम येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतलस्य मध्ये नमो पदस्वामिनिते नामिने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतलस्य मध्ये Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitya Namine. So we are continuing the book Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter 20. We are in the last two sections. In continuation to that, with his aesthetic filmmaker's eye, Dan appreciated Swamiji's manner. Dan, there was a sink right next to the dais where he sat. It was so close that he could have leaned over and touched it. After cutting up an apple, he would take the scraps and just fling them into the sink. It was very casual. I was very impressed by that. And one time, Brahmananda came up and wanted 50 cents for something. And the Swami reached down and picked up his little black purse, the kind that closes by a metal clasp at the top. He snapped it open, looked inside very perspicaciously, and then his hand came up like a bird, like an eagle hovering in flight above its prey. But the hand did not pounce, it just delicately drifted down, took out a 50-cent piece, and rose up again as if it were being lifted up on a balloon. It was graceful. It was a dance, a ballet. He just picked up this 50-cent piece and lifted it up. It lifted it into Brahmananda's hand. I could not believe it. Someone asked you for a 50-cent piece. You just dig in your pockets and throw it at them. But the Swami seemed to treat everything as Krishna's property, and this 50-cent piece was treated with such care. The weeks went by. Some of the devotees had spoken to Bob about initiation, but he was unsure. He did not know exactly what initiation was, but it seemed to him that the other devotees were eager to get him initiated because he was working and had a family. To Bob's way of thinking, he represented maturity to them, a middle class American, and they were eager to land him. Bob's wife wasn't interested, and his friends were downright opposed. He couldn't spend much time with Prabhupada or the devotees since he was either at the office or at the home with his family. Bob. So they were asking me if I was interested in initiation. I said I would think about it. I hadn't stopped smoking. I hadn't made the final decision. The first real personal exchange I had with the Swami was when I asked for initiation. The rest of the time I was so much in awe of him that it didn't occur to me to say anything. I always wanted to. I felt popped up, and I always thought, well, I should be able to talk to him. Maybe I should do something, but I was always kind of reluctant to do it. I didn't think it was my place. I guess maybe I was afraid, but I was getting up early and chanting 32 rounds a day, many of them on the subway. I was afraid of the material world because I did not have much association with devotees, and I wanted to insulate myself by chanting more. Judy was another person who was considering initiation, and I asked her what she was going to do about it. And she said, I am thinking about it. And then she told me she had decided she would get initiated and give up all her bad habits. I began to think maybe I could give up these things too. So I asked what to do. How do I approach him? And Kirtananda said, well, you go up to his room. I was surprised that it was so easy. I had prepared a little speech in my mind. My dear Swamiji, would you kindly accept me as your disciple and teach me about Krishna consciousness? I went up to his room without an appointment and knocked on the door. I heard him say, come in. I entered the room and he was sitting behind his desk. He was alone. I made obeisances and he looked at me and said, yes. And I said, Swamiji, will you make me your disciple? And that's as far as I got. I was going to say, and teach me the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But he didn't let me finish my speech. He said, yes, I was so simple. I thought, well, there is nothing else to say. He has accepted me. So I thanked him and paid my obeisances and left. You know, you are not supposed to be up here unless you are initiated, Achyutananda said. Judy was flustered. She said, "Come upstairs to put some dirty pots in the kitchen." "Oh, yes," she replied. "That's just what I wanted to talk to Swamiji about." And she went into Prabhupada's room where he was talking with a few other people. "Swamiji, could I please get initiated?" she asked. And he said, "Do you know the four rules?" "Yes." "Can you follow them?" "Yes." "Then you can be initiated in 2 weeks." Dan was also thinking about initiation, but he wanted to wait. He was chanting 16 rounds and attending all the classes. Despite his reluctant wife, he had always had difficulty with authority figures, but he could feel that the Swami was winning him over and wearing down his impersonal barrier. 2 weeks later, Prabhupada held another initiation ceremony. Bob became Rupanuga and Judy became Jadurani. Dan needed a little more time. Thus ends the chapter 20. So, chapter 21, Beyond the Lower East Side. But we were shocked that he was going to leave. I never thought that Krishna consciousness would go beyond the Lower East Side. What to speak of New York City? I thought that this was it and it would stay here eternally, said by Brahmananda. Hare Krishna was becoming popular. Regular kirtans in the park, newspaper coverage. Hayagriva called it the Hare Krishna explosion. The lower east side hippies consider the chanting of Hare Krishna one of the grooviest things happening, and that the Swami's disciples did not take LSD didn't seem to affect their popularity. The devotees were accepted as angelic people, carrying the peaceful chanting to others and offering free food and a free place to stay. You could get the most interesting vegetarian food free at their place if you went at the right time. And in their storefront, on the shelf by the door, were books from India. In the clubs, local musicians played the melody that they had picked up from the Swami. When he chanted in the park and at the temple, the Lower East Side was a neighborhood of artists and musicians. And now it was also the neighborhood of Hare Krishna. Burton Green, musicians were influenced by it. The Krishna chant, Govinda Jaya Jaya, and other chants. I used some of those chants when I recorded. A lot of musicians reached out for this in different ways. We would experiment in a short time and blow off, but then keep the chant underneath as a basis. A lot of people found that spiritual vibration even in the midst of the heavy music they were doing. They were becoming devotee musicians. Evening kirtans were always big. Brahmananda used to stand by the back door every night and watch the room fill up until there was no place left to sit. There was a lot of interest in the group chanting and music making, but after the kirtan, when the talk was to begin, people would start to leave. It was not uncommon for half the audience to leave before the talk began, and sometimes people would leave in the middle of the lecture. I will stop it here, and we can see that initially Prabhupada came very empty. We have seen in the previous chapters, but now the movement has expanded. Even the EPs got into the initiation. So these are the very best examples like Dan, Judy, and Bob here. What they are doing, how they are chanting. They are reached with a short time period of within short time period they reached to 16 rounds. So finally, Dan admired Swamiji's graceful, mindful actions and seeing of his spirituality in even simple gestures. That's what explained here, right? Even when he's asking 50 cents, the 50 cents property doesn't give directly, that he is respectful, that each and every cent that is a property of Krishna. So in that scenario, uh, they got very good impressions about the spirituality from the spiritual master. And upon these inspirations, finally, Dan and Judy got initiation, but Bob took some time. I think later he also got initiated. So in that way, we can see that process is pure, but over the time, definitely we will get all these opportunities upon doing the activities in a regular manner. These are my reflections. I'll stop it here.